In tonight's headlines, the ban on single-use plastics is officially in effect today, with the government mulling to roll out a broader second phase as early as next year. 4 taxi drivers have been slapped with 10 demerit points under a new penalty system aimed at stamping out the bad conduct of cabbies. And train services running between Tung Chung and Sunny Bay stations will end 2 hours earlier this Saturday for track diversion work for the Tung Chung Line Extension.
Hailing the first phase of the single-use plastics ban a success, Chief Executive John Lee said today that the government is now considering the rollout of a broader second phase, while promising a smooth transition. Environmental Protection Department data shows that about 80% of takeaway customers have opted not to use disposable utensils, while 30% of restaurants had stopped providing them. Speaking ahead of the Executive Council meeting, Lee praised that a plastic-free culture has been built during the first phase.
We want to go on to ensure that this plastic-free culture is more entrenched. So we will, first of all, prepare society and the businesses, particularly when we decide as to how we will go to the next stage, i.e., whether there is sufficient alternative products available in the market for society to move smoothly into the next stage, and more importantly, affordable prices.
In the second phase, plastic containers for takeaway, which are allowed for now, will also be banned. The government targets to initiate the ban as early as next year, but business insiders express concerns about insufficient time to find alternatives. Simon Wan, honorary chairman of the Institute of Dining Professionals, warned that a premature rollout could be counterproductive. While asking customers to bring their own utensils may cause minor inconvenience, banning containers would be much more burdensome, he said. Environmental group Greeners Action believes that, with adequate adaptation time, transitioning to the next phase should be manageable. They proposed an additional 6-month adaptation period, aiming for implementation in early next year. Quentin Yang, Cable News.
Four taxi drivers had been deducted points since the implementation of the taxi driver offense point system 1 month ago. Chief Executive John Lee vowed to ramp up enforcement and to consider camera installation in taxis. Lee stated that 4 taxi drivers have been deducted 10 points for overcharging or refusing to hire since the demerit point system was in effect. The authorities will enhance enforcement efforts and distribute information on fares and complaint phone numbers at border control points and places with a high demand for taxis. The city's chief added that the Transport and Logistics Bureau was set to equip taxis with cameras and expand public transport options in travel hotspots. Chow Kwok-keung, chairman of the Hong Kong Taxi and Public Light Bus Association, said, "It is undeniable that some black sheep are tarnishing the image of the taxi industry, and the taxis with newly added meters will be retrofitted with a video camera function." When asked about the lack of taxis at tourist hotspots, Cho said he hoped residents could understand that drivers would not enter and leave without passengers on board during long routes, hoping the authorities to consider the industry's needs and step up public transport services to ease the needs for hikers during holidays, such as in places like the Hyde Island Reservoir in Sai Kung. Evelyn Bai, Cable News.
Commuters of the MTR Tung Chung Line should pay attention to the change of service hours on the coming Saturday night. Due to track diversion work for the Tung Chung Line Extension, train services running between Tung Chung and Sunny Bay stations will end 2 hours earlier on October 26th. The last train to Hong Kong Station from Tung Chung Station will depart at 1:11 p.m., while the last train to Tung Chung Station from Hong Kong Station will depart at 7:11 p.m. Free shuttle buses will be provided for people to travel between the two stations after the early closure. Meanwhile, trains from Hong Kong Station to Sunny Bay and vice versa will run as usual. The railway company said it will pay close attention to the weather conditions as tropical cyclone Trami is edging closer to the city, and that services might also be affected on Sunday if there is any delay to the works.
Hong Kongers are told to brace for a windy weekend with showers as the tropical cyclone Trami will intensify gradually and edge closer to the city towards the weekend. Trami, currently to the east of the Philippines, will move west in the general direction to the vicinity of Hainan Island and is expected to enter within 800 kilometers of the city later on Thursday to early Friday. The observatory will then issue the standby signal number 1. Under the combined effect of Trami and a northeast monsoon that is heading to southern China towards the weekend, it will be windy and become cloudy with a few showers over the coast of southern China later on Friday and over the weekend. Depending on the movement of Trami and the change in local wind conditions, the weather watchdog will assess the need to issue the strong wind signal number 3.
Open auction for the stalls at the 2025 Lunar New Year fairs across the city kicked off today, with the two most high-profile fast food stalls at the Victoria Park sold at a price tag about 18% lower than last year's highest bid, while the other two food stalls were only sold at upset prices. After 11 bids, the two fast food stalls near the Causeway Bay entrance were sold for $180,000 and $182,000, nearly 50% above the upset price of $120,000 and $470,000, but significantly lower than last year's highest bid of $220,000. These successful bidders said the upcoming Chinese New Year might see more Hong Kongers staying in the city unless they head back to visit families on the mainland. We will make less profits than before, but still have business, he predicted. However, the two fast food stalls near Tin Hau saw little interest, with only one bidder winning both stalls at the upset price. As for the 60 wet goods stalls auctioned off today, pricing ranged from a few $1,000s up to nearly $50,000. This wet goods staller said this year's competition was not as fierce as last year due to the sluggish economy and that some vendors who suffered losses last year did not show up. Hoi So-hing, Senior Superintendent of the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department, said the bidding prices mirror the current market conditions, and the authority will review the upset prices for next year. The LNY fairs are to be held at 15 locations across the city for 7 days from January 23, 2025, providing nearly 1,500 stalls which are put up for open auction in batches starting today. Among these, the Victoria Park Fair will feature 395 stalls, with bidding for 216 dry goods stalls held on Wednesday and Thursday. Evelyn Bai, Cable News.
The government will prioritize the development of the northern metropolis with greater economic potential, while postponing the Khao Yi Chau Artificial Islands project to allocate more resources towards the former, according to Secretary for Development Bernadette Lin. Lin made the remarks today when replying to a lawmaker's query about if current government budget and manpower can support both large-scale infrastructure projects.
Well, while we have these two projects that are ongoing, they're at different stages. In 10 years' time, Northern Metropolis will offer some 1,700 hectares, but for Khao Yi Chau Artificial Islands, we're talking about 300 hectares. So in these 10 years, we are focusing on the northern metropolis.
But the development chief assured that the administration is determined to advancing the Kaoyu-Chao plan despite the fiscal deficit.
Our economy changes every year. Same goes for our government fiscal position. Well, before the detailed design's been completed, we shouldn't be too hasty in coming to a conclusion on how much the project would cost. We have to ask ourselves if we need such land in 30 years' time. If we need land, then we have to proceed with the project.
Lin noted that the Kaoyu-Chao project is currently undergoing an environmental impact assessment, and construction will not start until 2027, which will help manage costs. For the northern metropolis, 3 pilot sites have been identified: Fanling North, Santin Technopole, and Hongshui-Q, each covering 10 to 20 hectares. An intent survey will be conducted within this year, with a proposal for a pilot industry park expected by early next year, according to Lin. Quentin Yang, Cable News.
President Xi Jinping landed today in Kazan, the capital of Russia's Republic of Tatarstan, to attend the 60th BRICS Summit. During his visit, Xi will attend the leaders' meeting, the expert leaders' dialogues, and other activities, and have in-depth exchanges with leaders on the current international situation. The 3-day summit will be hosted by Russian President Vladimir Putin. In a bid to show the West that Moscow cannot be kept off the global stage under the shadow of the Ukraine war, Putin will hold around 20 bilateral meetings with leaders from China, India, and the Arab world. The summit is the first to be held after the BRICS expansion in January, when Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates were included into the group. Amid reports of North Korea sending troops to support Russia in Ukraine, an online photo by a blogger showed the Russian and North Korean flags side by side on a Ukrainian battlefield. Seoul spy agency said it confirmed Pyongyang is sending 1,500 members of its special forces to Russia this month and expected to dispatch a total of 12,000 troops to take part in the war in Ukraine. Pyongyang dismissed the accusation as groundless rumors. South Korea's Vice Foreign Minister Kim Hong-kyun yesterday summoned the Russian ambassador, seeking the immediate withdrawal of North Korean troops in Ukraine. Seoul pledged countermeasures in line with the level of military cooperation between Russia and North Korea. Government sources said South Korea is considering sending a team of personnel to Ukraine to monitor the tactics of North Korean troops deployed there. At the United Nations Security Council meeting, Kyiv said 11,000 North Korean infantry troops are currently trained in Russia's east for deployment by November.
This is yet another blow to the myth of the second army of the world, the army which is in reality is begging from global outcasts not only for weapons but also for manpower.
While Russia stressed that cooperation with Pyongyang is within the framework of international law, Washington pointed out that the move might imply Kremlin's desperation.
If true, this marks a dangerous and highly concerning development and an obvious deepening of the DPRK-Russia military relationship. We are consulting with our allies and partners on the implications of such a dramatic move. If Russia is indeed turning to the DPRK for manpower, it would be a sign of desperation on the part of the Kremlin.
Anna Chan, Cable News.